The Planes of Correspondence, Chapter 8 of the KYBALION. As above, so below, as below, so above. The second Hermetic principle, the great second Hermetic principle, embodies the truth that there is a harmony, an agreement, and a correspondence between several different planes of manifestation, or creation, or where things come into being. But we can use this second principle of correspondence to see a correlation or a relation between that which is above and that which is below, as stated, as above, so below, so above. Life and being are part of these several planes of manifestation. This truth is a truth because all that is included in the universe emanates from one source, from the same source. And we talked about this in yesterday's video, how if you go all the way down with a microscope to the smallest possible viewpoint of that which makes up all matter, any form of matter. The example yesterday was that of an acorn, and trying to find what is inside of the seed. And you find this dust, and when you zoom in on the dust, you find molecules, and you find particles, and if you go further, you find electrons and protons, and if you go further, you find subatomic particles, and eventually you get to a quantum area to where you no longer see any matter. And everything that is the source of everything is this energy field. And so this energy field is this source that is within each and every one of us, and it is within everything that we see here in the visible physical world, the as below. But then there is that which is the cause for all that is seen, but remains unseen. Hope you got yourself some tea, ladies and gentlemen. Soothing pleasures are the best, and tea soothes the soul. It's a great gift from my mom. I love that cup. But this idea that everything that we see comes from this quantum realm, the spiritual realm, this realm of the unseen. And so, with that being said, let me continue now. And also, thank you for joining me. It is Wednesday, and you know what that means. Time for some more Wednesday wisdom, diving deeper into our series of the KYBALION. Once again, Chapter 8, The Planes of Correspondence. And we are talking about the great physical plane, the great mental plane, the great spiritual plane, and the fourth dimension, as described in the KYBALION. And then we will get into the 7 minor physical planes and more. We will see how far we get today, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you for joining me, reading this for purposes of teaching and commentary and expanding the mind so that through an increased awareness, we can hopefully increase the quality of our lives and the lives of those around us. Now, the truth, this truth is a truth because all that is included in the universe emanates from the same source. That was where my previous ramble came from. And these same laws and principles and characteristics apply to each unit or combination of units of activity. And each manifests, comes into being, its own phenomena upon its own plane. For the purpose of convenience of thought and study, the Hermetic philosophy considers that the universe may be divided into 3 great classes of activity, things going on. It says phenomena, known as the 3 great planes, namely the great physical plane, number 1, the great mental plane, number 2, and the great spiritual plane, number 3. So we have the physical level, the mental level, and then the spiritual level. 3 divisions, and these divisions are more or less artificial and arbitrary, for the truth is that all of the 3 divisions are but ascending degrees of the greater scale of life. And so if you also joined us yesterday, we also talked about poles. and polarities. And each of these is a principle of the KYBALION here in the beginning. But you have two poles of one thing. And so it's important to keep in mind that despite we seeing things as opposites, light and dark and hot and cold, that there really is just an entire gray area in between the scales, and the difference between the two poles is merely a matter of a difference in degree. Sometimes literally. However, with that being said, we can see that there is paradoxically a unity in duality, or a oneness of things that are seemingly opposites. And this is important to keep in mind as we continue. These divisions are more or less artificial and arbitrary, which is why I rambled on that a little bit, because the truth for these three divisions between the physical, the mental, and the spiritual plane is that all of them are but ascending degrees on one scale. And so they're marking points, as you may say. The lowest point of which is undifferentiated matter, and the highest is that of the point of spirit. And moreover, the different planes shade into each other so that no hard or fast division may be made between the higher phenomena of the physical plane and the lower of the mental, or the higher of the mental and the lower of the spiritual. But with that being said, in short, the three great planes may be regarded as three great groups or degrees of life manifestation. So different degrees of life coming into being on this scale. So we're talking about a physical existence, a mental existence, and a spiritual existence. And remember also from yesterday, we learned that we are coexisting between this realm of the unseen, that which is the cause, the energy responsible for all of the visible, the realm of the seen. And so we, being a part of that, are simultaneously in both. We're coexisting in the physical reality and the non-physical reality, the energy, the akasha, the field, whatever you want to call it. Different names, God, energy source, Tao. But the point is still the same. And so while the purposes of this little book do not allow us to enter into extended discussion of or explanation of the subject of these different planes of being, still we think it well to give a general description of this same point. They worded that weird. Still we think it well to give a general description of the same at this point. And so, once again, this is the KYBALION coming to us from the three initiates, one of those three being William Watker Atkinson, and two others that inspired him. The identity of the three initiates has been a subject of much secrecy and rumor since the KYBALION first appeared in 1908. But three initiates is most likely one of the pseudonyms used by William Walker Atkinson, who was a popular New Thought writer and publisher in the early 20th century. And so there's a random background. If you've been here before, you know I ramble and kind of my mind goes different places because this is my journey. And thank you for joining me. We can learn together and discover together to see what we can find, because I really never do know where this is going to go. I haven't reread this far. We got past where my bookmark was before, so we're going into the fourth dimension, ladies and gentlemen, and that's just what we're about to talk about right now. And so, at the beginning, we may as well consider the question so often asked by the neophyte who desires to be informed regarding the meaning of the word plane. So we're talking about these different planes of being, the planes of correspondence. And what does the word plane really mean? Which term has been very freely used and very poorly explained in many recent works upon the subjects of occultism and mysticism. The question is generally about as follows. Is a plane a place having dimensions, measurable, Or is it merely a condition or a state? We answer no, not a place, nor ordinary dimension of space, and yet more than just a state or a condition. It may be considered as a state or a condition, and yet the same state or condition is a degree of dimension in a scale subject to measurement. Now, we went over this last week. I'm just trying to go through this again quickly because, once again, the number one lesson, and let's jump back to that because we always do, it's the most important lesson of Hermetic philosophy, comes to us from the Hermetica, the lost wisdom of the pharaohs, and the Ibis god, the sage god Thoth, Tahat. But the wise words of thrice greatest Hermes, because this kind of information, this kind of spiritual philosophy, esoteric thought, can be very complex and can feel overwhelming at times. And so I find it very suiting that in chapter 1 of the Hermetica, the prophecies of Hermes, in this chapter, Hermes describes the nature of pure philosophy. And so he tells us, because if you're I'm often asking the question, how can we truly understand this? And so Hermes tells us in his first words here, a pure philosophy is a spiritual striving through a constant contemplation to attain true knowledge of Atum, the one God. Those are the first 4 lines, and memorize those lines and keep them in your mind whenever you are thinking, holy cow, that was really complex. I can't understand this slightly. Because the way to get this deep kind of esoteric wisdom of the ages, been passed down for thousands of years, is that a pure philosophy is a spiritual striving through a constant contemplation, a constant meditation, a constant rumination, a constant ponderation, a thinking upon, so that we may come to attain the true knowledge for ourselves. This is a personal journey. It's not like somebody can just tell you the answer and you get it. It's almost like unlocking doors of realization within yourself. All right, sorry for my rambling there. Back to the point, but I wanted to say that because it's important to get this when we're talking about things such as not a place nor an ordinary dimension of space, but yet more than a state or condition. It may be considered as a state or condition, but yet the state or condition is also a degree of dimension. That might take very much contemplation. I'm speaking from my own self, so but in a scale subject to measurement. Somewhat paradoxical, is it not? Yes, of course. That's why we love a good paradox. Once again, the unity in the duality, to see that there is a oneness in things that are seemingly separate, is a simple example of a paradox. How can this be? But let us examine the matter, the book continues. A dimension, you know, is a measure or a measure in a straight line. It's relating to measuring, etc. The ordinary dimensions of space are length, breadth, and height, or perhaps length, breadth, height, thickness, or circumference. But there is another dimension of created things, or a measure in a straight line to know. This is the book says this is known to occultists and to scientists as well, although the latter we have not applied the term dimension to it. And so he's telling us that there is another 4th dimension, and science, as well as occultists for thousands of years before scientists have discovered it more recently, have known of this mysterious extra dimension, this extra plane, so to speak. And this new dimension, which, by the way, is the much speculated about 4th dimension, is the standard used in determining the degrees or planes. The 4th dimension may be called the dimension of vibration. I find it so fitting that our reading yesterday was all about this. There's a lot of synchronicities, ladies and gentlemen. And if you're discovering how to manifest your destiny, or if you've been looking into that kind of material for years and years now, as I have, you will still find all the time that you are discovering new ahas and new synchronicities and new things that just seem to line up, like we were reading and talking about this unseen dimension that is the cause for all of the seen. And this is, I believe, what they're talking about now, this dimension of vibration, this quantum realm where there is no solid matter. It's all just waves of energy. I want to go to that because this is my journey. And if I look back at this later, I'll be like, yes, I wanted to go back to that. So, the problem that faces most of us right now in learning to manage the circumstances of our lives, that we have forfeited our ability to oscillate between the world of form, the physical reality, and the plane of the mental plane and the spiritual plane. We have forfeited our abilities to oscillate between the world of form and the unseen world. And so, let's see, the general concept, that was a funny one. The general concept of the soul or the spirit is that you have one, but it is not that important to daily life. And it may become really significant, though, after life. But we need to begin to take a different position. At its core, it is the very first principle of manifesting. It will help lead us to discovering that we have this ability within ourselves, that we are partially spirit and mind and body all at the same time. And we can work on becoming co-creators or once again managers of the circumstances of our lives. But once again, back to that point we were looking at, the if we further examine the brown stuff that makes up an acorn or ourselves or any other part of physical reality, we will find that smaller and smaller amounts, and we ultimately discover molecules. And then we go down, find atoms, and then electrons, and then subatomic particles, and finally we go as small with the microscope as we can. And here we find that there are no particles, but there are waves of energy that mysteriously come and go. And so, I mean, this has been agreed upon by the most ancient occultists and mystics, and philosophers, as well as modern science in our uses of technology to discover the same exact thing. But both of these are telling us this is all lined up. And it has to be very important to understand. To who? I don't know. I find it really fascinating. I think if we learn it, we might actually have an ability to once again manage the circumstances or kind of flow with or become in harmony with nature, with the Tao, with God, with life, and so that we might just have a better quality experience. Because if our lives are made up of moments, I know I'm rambling, but once again, thank you for being here and joining me. Hopefully, you're getting value. But if our lives are made up of moments, then we want to stack those moments. And this doesn't mean that we won't have struggles and things that we need to go through to grow through as a soul or a spirit here in this adventure that we've set up for ourselves, I believe, each individually on our own path and journey. But we want to stack those moments and we want to use every bit of knowledge and wisdom that we can to try to have a better life and help other people to do the same thing. But with that being said, we're coming back to this realm of vibration, down at the smallest level, the source and the cause for everything that is in the physical realm that we see and experience. And so this dimension of vibration, we may call it, is in fact well known to modern science as well as the Hermeticists who have embodied their truth in their third Hermetic principle, which is the principle of vibration, that everything is in motion and everything vibrates, nothing is at rest. From the highest manifestation to the lowest, everything and all things vibrate. Not only do they vibrate at different rates of motion, but as in different directions and in a different manner. The degrees of the rate of vibration constitute the degrees of measurement on the scale of vibrations. In other words, the degrees of the fourth dimension are the causes for the varying degrees in the other dimensions themselves. In other words, and these degrees, from what occultists call planes. So, let me read that again. I messed up a sentence there. But once again, the degree or the rate of vibrations constitute the degrees of measurement on the scale. In other words, the different degrees of the fourth dimension. These degrees form what occultists call planes, the different planes of reality. Or what did they call them? The three great planes. What was the name? Yeah, the three great planes. And so, I say that a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Once again, this is all for fun, and we're just learning together here. So if you're getting more than this than I am, please leave that in the comments, and thank you for joining me, especially those of you in the premieres. It means a lot to me to see you there. But once again, varying planes, everything vibrates. Not only, see, it's not a state or condition, though. So while that a plane is not a place, it also possesses qualities that are common to both a place and a state or condition. Now, the book continues, the higher the degree of the rate of vibration, the higher the plane, and the higher the manifestation of life occupying that plane. And so, likewise, the lower the degree of vibration, the lower the plane, and the lower the manifestation of life occupying that plane. And so we shall have more, the book says, to say regarding the subject of the scale of vibrations in our next lessons, in which we shall consider the Hermetic principle of vibration. But you will kindly remember, however, that the three great planes are not actual divisions. Remember, it's just this scale of gray area. And that the three great planes are not actual divisions of the phenomena of the universe, but merely arbitrary terms used by Hermeticists and seekers of this such information in order to aid in the thought and the study of the various degrees and forms of universal activity in life. The atom of matter, the unit of force, the mind of man, and the being of the archangel are all but degrees in one scale, and all fundamentally the same, the difference between, once again, solely a matter of degree, and a rate of vibration is another way to say that. Frequencies, harmonies, vibrations, energy, all are creations of the All, of God, of Atum, grand organized design, that which is all names, so the names are irrelevant, because it is all. In this book, they call it the All. And all are creations of the All, and all have their existence solely within the infinite mind of God, or the All, as we have learned before. The Hermeticists subdivide, however, each of the three great planes into 7 minor planes. So we have 7 physical planes, 7 mental planes, and 7 spiritual planes. Each of these latter are also subdivided into 7 planes, all divisions being more or less arbitrary because, once again, it's one scale and they all kind of shade into each other. And adopted merely for convenience of, once again, esoteric or scientific study and thought. And so, This is once again correspondence. The rule of correspondence taught us that to study and discover something that is really, unknowable or unexplainable, infinite, non-physical, non-finite, we have to use the law of correspondence that says as above, so below. So we can attribute certain finite characteristics to understand to that which might be infinite using correspondence while also understanding the real truth that it is beyond that which is knowable. It is like to try, if you're describing something which is indescribable, you have to remember while in doing this, it is kind of silly, but it is once again for the purposes of study and thought. So we don't throw out the baby with the bathwater, so to speak. I'm rambling again, sorry. This was all covered in earlier chapters, so if you missed any part of this series, we have gone through all of the previous 7 chapters. We are now on chapter 8, the planes of correspondence. Now, so they divide these into 7 minor planes, and then those 7 minor planes are also divided into 7 sub-minor planes, into 7 subplanes, and all divisions being more, yes. The great physical plane and its 7 minor planes is the division of the phenomena of the universe, which includes all that relates to physics, material things, forces, and manifestations. It includes all forms of that which we call matter, and all forms of that which we call energy or force. But you must remember that the Hermetic philosophy does not recognize matter as a thing in itself, or as having a separate existence, even in the mind of God. The teachings are that matter is merely but a form of energy. That is, remember, what is the cause for everything that we see in the physical realm is this quantum vibration going on. And the different rates or variations of this vibration or this activity is what causes the different forms and things or the what comes into being, what comes manifest, the manifestations of the physical realm. And so the teachings are that matter is but a form of energy, that is, energy at a low rate of vibrations of a certain kind. And accordingly, the Hermeticists classify matter under the head of energy and give it 3 of the 7 minor planes of the great physical plane. Now, these, if you want to take notes, are the 7 minor physical planes. Number 1 is the plane of matter. Number 2, the plane of matter. And number 3 is the plane of matter. These are the planes of matter A, B, and C, so probably the different forms. And we'll talk about this in just a second. Number 4 is the plane of ethereal substance, or ethereal substance. Etheric, it says ethereal. And then number 5, 6, and 7 are the planes of energy A, B, and C. So there are 3 planes of matter, subplanes, the plane of ethereal substance, and then the 3 planes of energy. So the first plane of matter, A, comprises the forms of matter in its form of solids, liquids, and gases, as generally recognized the textbooks on physics, by the textbooks on physics. The second plane of matter comprises certain higher and more subtle forms of matter, of the existence of which modern science is just now but recognizing. The phenomena of radiant matter in its phases of radium, etc., belonging to the lower subdivision of this minor plane. The plane of matter 3, or C, comprises forms of the most subtle and tenuous matter. So it seems like we're going from the most solid form of matter to that of the least solid form of matter, higher rates of vibration, so to speak. But the third plane of matter, or plane of matter C, comprises forms of the most subtle and tenuous matter, the existence of which is not suspected by ordinary scientists. So this goes into spiritual speculation. The plane of ethereal substance comprises that which science speaks of as the ether. And this is something which I wish would become highly more popular among the masses or the public domain, to talk about the ether and the use of the ether for at least capturing energy. It makes you wonder why they used to build so many buildings the way they did in the old world, when it would be completely impractical if you're trying to save on labor, or, if times are tough. You'd wonder why you'd be so ornate and amazing and build towers that reach into the sky with beautiful spires and amazing looking decorations. That's an entirely different subject, but that's what I think of when the ether comes up. But science speaks of this plane of ethereal substance as the ether, a substance of extreme tenuity and elasticity, pervading all universal space and acting as a medium for the transmission of waves of energy, such as light, heat, electricity, etc. This ethereal substance forms a connecting link between matter, so called, remember, matter is just an energy in a form, and energy. So, this ether is extremely important and responsible in allowing the functioning of reality as we experience it. To explain that sentence in its entirety would take probably 500 other videos that were 50 hours long. And so hopefully that comes up in one of our recommendations from somebody who has done that already for us, because man, I would love to hear about that. This ethereal substance forms a connecting link between matter, so called, and energy, and partakes of the nature of each. See, when I'm re-listening later to this, interacting with you in the chat room, I will be thinking something different than I am about that now. That's why it's so fun to go back and reread these and contemplate. Remember, pure philosophy, spiritual striving through constant contemplation to get this. I can't wait for that revelation, because that is a deep one. I want to say it again. This is very important. I feel it right now, and I think I should highlight it. Where are my highlighters? It's funny, this orange one. Oh, it actually looks orange today. Normally, the white balance is a little off, but right here, we're talking about the ether and the fourth dimension and the planes of correspondence and the seven minor subplanes of the great physical plane. So the subdivisions of physical reality. This is deep stuff, ladies and gentlemen, but for some reason I love it. And thank you for being here and joining me. Hopefully you're getting value, or at least. So the plane of ethereal substance, which is the fourth of the seven planes of physical reality, three of them being matter, one being the ether, and three of them being energy, different types of matter. The ether is a substance of extreme tenuity. It is pervading all universal space and acting as a medium for the transmission of waves, different kinds of waves of energy, such as light, heat, and electricity. And this ethereal substance forms a connecting link between matter and energy and partakes of the nature of each. The Hermetic teachings, however, instruct that this plane has 7 subdivisions, as have all of the minor planes. How many would that be? Do some math for me. Do some math for me there. We have 3 majors, 7 minors, and then 7 of each minor. I'm going to keep reading because I don't want to waste our time here. But for somebody that's great at math, they'll be like, boom, I have it already. And then those are anyways. The Hermetic teachings, however, instruct that this plane has 7 subdivisions, the one of the ether, as well as have all of the minor planes, and in fact, there are 7 others instead of one. Excuse me. All right. So, next, above the plane of ethereal substance comes the plane of energy, which comprises the ordinary forms of energy known to science, its 7 subplanes being respectively heat, light, magnetism, electricity, and attraction, including gravitation, cohesion, chemical affinity, etc. That wasn't 7, though. Heat, light, magnetism, electricity, and attraction. We have 5. And several other forms of energy indicated by scientific experiments, but not as yet named or classified. The plane of energy B comprises 7 subplanes of higher forms of energy not as yet discovered by science, but which have been called nature's finer forces, and which are called into operation in manifestations of certain forms of mental phenomena. So we're getting into the mental realm there, and by which such phenomena becomes possible. The plane of energy C, or 3, comprises 7 subplanes of energy so highly organized that it bears many of the characteristics of life, but which is not recognized by the minds of men on the ordinary plane of development. Being available for the use of beings of the spiritual plane alone, such energy is unthinkable to ordinary man. How they know this, I think it's just speculation. It could come from esoteric and mystic research of their own throughout William Walker Atkinson's life and his 2 inspirees that inspired him to put this work together for those of us that are simple students on the path needing an introduction to such deep realms of thought. So I thank him for that and his addition to this work. But those parts that are saying this hasn't been a chance yet, that's open to your own personal opinion and interpretation and how you feel and how that resonates with you. A lot of this, once again, everything has to do with energy, and a resonation is a form of just that. I think it's a harmony of 2 fields of energy coming into some kind of alignment, and then that clicking in an intellectual version on the mental plane in your mind. Maybe it's a connection and a harmonizing of the frequencies and energy patterns from the physical, mental, and spiritual planes together to give you a resonation and an aha, an understanding, a personal realization. I've never heard that description of the Satori or the personal aha moment, but that might be a good one. Now, let's finish up here with the last few words, because this chapter is amazing. And I still have plenty of work to do, ladies and gentlemen, in understanding the planes of reality, the planes of correspondence, and the functioning nature. The next chapter is solely on vibration, so I look forward into getting to that. However, the plane of energy C, once again, comprises 7 subplanes of highly organized energy. This is like the area of deities, of gods, divine power, which is not recognized by the minds of men on the ordinary plane, but being available for use of beings on the spiritual plane alone. And this kind of energy, such energy is unthinkable to ordinary man and may be considered almost as, quote unquote, the divine power. The beings employing the same are as gods compared to even the highest human types known to us. You may be referencing like the greatest spiritual masters, The greatest sages of the ages, ladies and gentlemen. The great mental plane comprises those forms of living things known to us in ordinary life, as well as certain other forms not so well known, except to the occultists. The classification of the 7 minor mental planes is more or less satisfactory and arbitrary, unless unaccompanied by elaborate explanations, which are foreign to the purpose of this particular work. But we may mention them as well here, and they are as follows. Number 1, the mineral mind. This is the 7 subplanes of the great mental plane. Once again, all of these are arbitrary and they're all the same scale, ascending scale of vibration in life. And so, but they are as follows. Number 1, the plane of mineral mind. Number 2, the plane of elemental mind, A. Number 3, the plane of plant mind. So minerals and elements and plants all have a level of mind. Keep that in mind. The plane of the elemental mind, B, or number 2. And then the 5th mental subplane, the plane of the animal mind. The 6th is the 3rd, or the plane of elemental mind, C. And then the 7th is finally the plane of human mind. Very interesting, ladies and gentlemen. The plane of the mineral mind comprises the state or conditions of the units or entities or groups of combinations of the same which animate the forms known to us as minerals, chemicals, etc. These entities must not be confounded with molecules, atoms, and corpuscles themselves, the latter being merely the material bodies or forms of these entities, just as a man's body is but his material form and not, quote unquote, himself, his or herself. Because remember, we are both mind, body, and spirit. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is where we will leave it off for today's study. And next time we will begin right there. The plane of mind, the mental plane. Today was the physical plane and the planes of correspondence and understanding vibration. And the 4th dimension, ladies and gentlemen, the dimension that is responsible and that is the cause for all that we see in the world of form. But we coexist simultaneously in this 4th dimension, this world of vibration, and also this world, the physical realm, the mental realm, and the spiritual realm. The 3 great planes, I don't know what I'll title this video, but that, ladies and gentlemen, is a boom to the KYBALION, Chapter 8, the planes of correspondence, and a boom to Hermetic philosophy, coming to us from William Walker Atkinson. Some good tea. What does the tea say today, ladies and gentlemen? It says the essence of life is to communicate love. Well, I love and appreciate each and every one of you, ladies and gentlemen. Remember to seek to achieve and maintain happiness through enlightenment, through a greater awareness and understanding of the nature of ourselves, of reality, spirituality, philosophy, so that through this increased awareness, we can hopefully increase the quality of our lives. And also, ladies and gentlemen, remember to seek to discover the lost wisdom of the ages and the mysteries of our history. And also, keep in mind, there is no way to happiness because happiness is the way. If we can create the ability within ourselves to bring it to life, then all those things we've been telling ourselves, oh, when I get this much and have these things and get all that, then I'll finally be content and happy. That becomes irrelevant because then, hopefully, we are there. And then hopefully the entire journey is wonderful. Once again, though, there are things here in reality that we must go through and struggle through to grow through and to learn as a spirit and a soul on this journey. At least that's what I believe and think. And I do also believe and think that there is a way that we can go through these things that we would normally call suffering or struggles to learn these lessons. And I think there's a way we can get the lessons and go through these things without actually suffering very much at all. But I think that is a very mystical, ancient technique that would take a lot of study to discover and understand, but that is what I would like to call the science of lucky people, coined by Dr. Wayne Dyer, but that's a different subject. All right, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I love and appreciate each and every one of you that spends time here with me and all the wonderful authors and poets, mystics, philosophers, and sages of the ages. Be sure to expand the description to get this book for yourself, as well as a link to the Hermetica and the Corpus Hermeticum, so you can put them on your shelf and follow along in future episodes of this series, as well to just have for personal reference. Physical copies, I'm telling you. Also, a link to my Etsy shop, my landscape paintings, if you'd like to get one of those for yourself, and a link to C60 Power, the ultimate antioxidant known to man. I've been using it for years. No news is good news, so give yourself the gift of health. All right. Love you, ladies and gentlemen. Until next time, be the change that you want to see. Be the example that you want to set. Thank you.